Welcome back, everyone. My name is Ember, and today we are continuing our One Piece journey with Volume 47. We are continuing our journey in Thriller Bark. This covers chapters 450 to 459. So this starts... Where does this start? I actually read a little bit of this yesterday, but I got caught up in binging spring season stuff. So, where actually is... So, it looks like... just some fights are happening. Oh, this is when, Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro, like, first get into Hogback's mansion, and it goes all the way up until after Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro lose their shadows. They get back to the ship here, Brook's story, and then they get prepped to go back in. So, not a whole lot in this one. This one's mostly a fighty volume again, but there's definitely some interesting stuff in here. The one thing I was a little underwhelmed by is, I guess, just the appearance of Gecko Moria. Like, I understand everyone is kind of a kooky, funny villain in this one, like Gecko Moria included, but as one of the seven warlords of the sea, I guess I was just expecting a little more. I don't know. My expectations were set quite high by Crocodile. He's not a bad villain. I mean, he's got an interesting power. The shadow fruit. We're getting into some really cool devil fruit powers though now. Like apparently your soul is tied to your shadow, and he can rip your shadow off of your body, i.e. But it's not really your soul. It's sort of like a reflection of your soul, and you can't go in the light after you lose your shadow, as we learned in the previous volume. And it sets up all these really interesting rules about how the shadow fruit works, and makes for some really interesting ideas about basically... I mean, it's basically setting up that Luffy and friends are going to have to fight themselves, and that's going to be really cool to see. But Gecko Moria himself isn't that interesting. Maybe he will become more interesting in the next volume or two, because we're already like halfway through Thriller Bark at this point. So hopefully he gets a little more interesting. I've only heard the name in like the One Piece discussions that I've been vaguely attached to. I've never even seen his face before now, so I guess he's not a super popular villain, which would make sense if he only exists for this arc. But yeah, he's okay. Was hoping for a little more, but yeah, just some really interesting stuff with the shadow fruit. I guess it's Pedora is the one who's doing like the negative ghost spirit things. There's just some really interesting power sets in this volume so far, which is kind of why it's disappointing when it just comes down to hitting people with swords sometimes, and just punching people. Yeah, if you can't tell from the past, like, probably 5 or 6 of these volume reviews, I'm getting a little fight fatigue with One Piece at this point. Hopefully, once we get into the more interesting power sets, that'll change, because because after this is Sabaody, which I believe is where Boa Hancock comes from, if the volume covers are be to believed. I know nothing about her except that One Piece fans like her. And then after that is Impel Down and the Paramount War. So, that's going to be fucking hype. But for now, as of now, I am a little battle fatigued. So hopefully that fixes itself. We get a little more of Brook's backstory in this one. Turns out he was one of the pirates who befriended Laboon, the whale, from way back at Reverse Mountain. Really emotional tie-in arc there, like the Afro thing, like where Brook, it's set up that Brook is like really will just give up a fight in order to protect his Afro. It's kind of like a gimmick or kind of a joke, at the beginning, but then as we find out, like, the afro is his only identifying marker left for Laboon to recognize him, so that gives it a lot more emotional significance. Yeah, the last chapter of this volume really, really sold me on Brook. Like, I was already sold on Brook. He's just a cool fucking dude. But this one really gave that nice emotional hook to everything. Honestly, I think that's all I have to say about this volume, other than, the forced marriage on Nami thing is still a little... I'm not annoyed by it at this... I'm not super annoyed by it at this point, but it is what it is. I do like that it... I do like the interesting workaround where it turns out salt is the zombie's weakness, because ocean water has salt in it. Salt comes from seawater, I guess, and therefore it negates the power of devil fruits. Bit of a stretch, but it's an interesting idea. So that was kind of cool. But I think that's all I have for this volume. This was probably a pretty short one. But when I don't have anything to say, I don't have anything to say. I think I got all my interesting ideas out. The continent mover that Luffy shed got put in is going to be fun as hell to see in upcoming fights. So we'll see where that goes. But in any case, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Also, as I mentioned, I finished my spring marathon. I wrapped up all the anime that I was going to finish from the spring season. I have a bunch of videos on that out now. I have a whole playlist on that if you want to check that out. And be sure to leave a comment in this video if you think I missed anything or if you have anything else to add. My name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.